Welcome back, Remote Learning, Week 4. So this week we're going to cover the theoretical analysis of culture using those theoretical approaches that we talked about last unit and briefly before we went on this weird recess. So let's do it. I just wanted to get over a review of the theories. So structural functional is that structure and function of society, solidarity and stability, how to act and what happens when you don't act appropriately. So remember, structural functional is our rule, it's our law and order, it's all that organization stuff. Social conflict is the idea that society is going to continually generate conflict, thus it can generate change. And remember, change is not always progressive, it can be regressive as well. So two sectors of society at odds with each other to make some sort of push in some direction. And lastly, we always had symbolic interaction, which is that everyday interactions with everybody around you. But for this unit, we're getting rid of symbolic interaction and we're going to introduce sociobiology. Don't worry about it. So the first one, structural functional approach to culture, is the same idea as that we know what's right from wrong based on culture. So based on what we know about American law and that we perceive to be acceptable versus unacceptable. Now, there are things that are taboo and that we all do and we don't talk about. We are still talking about those kinds of things when we're talking about structural functional. For example, the drinking age. Obviously, we know it's 21. If you're caught and you are drinking under the age of 21, there are consequences. However, culturally, your family may have different rules in your own home. I'm not condoning underage drinking. I'm just stating for the sociological fact that the cultural perception of certain rules is sometimes different than the reality. For example, another one is speeding on the highway. You know that you're only supposed to go 65 miles an hour, but sometimes you go over 65 miles an hour. It's, again, the things that tell us what's right from wrong, what's cool versus what's not cool, and it gives us structure for knowing what we can and cannot talk about. So structural functional lets you know what's okay and what's not okay, and it continues to do that in a cultural sense. Okay, going on to the next one. So this is social conflict. This is materialism. So this is high culture versus popular culture and those different types of terms. Everybody has to have the newest, whatever it is. So a little bit of my social conflict approach here is my first car, which was a 1992 Dodge Spirit that pretty much looked like this picture. And then I had a friend who was from a very wealthy family, and when he turned 16, his parents bought him a brand new Land Rover. So, obviously, this is displaying that he has cultural dominance over me when it comes to socioeconomics. And that's what the social conflict approach in culture is. It could also be your Target handbag versus your Louis Vuitton handbag. So anything that displays a certain pressure, economic dominance, and forces us to want what the others have. I mean, you can say you don't want it, but if you had enough money, you probably would have it. And the last one is sociobiology. Sociobiology is kind of controversial. It's this idea that biology affects how we create culture, and it's rooted in evolution. So, because it's rooted in evolution, it can be as simple as, well, it's cold, my body's not coated in fur, and I need a coat. I know some of you guys are like, well, I will never wear pants, even on the coldest day. Um, that's not necessarily part of this because pants do exist for the rest of us who have cold legs. But it's just the idea that I can't see well. So I need corrective lenses, whether they be glasses or contacts. And that creates a segment of the population that looks different because we have this biological need 4 glasses. Or, like I said, we live in the Northeast, so we may have snow boots versus people who live in Southern Florida, like in Miami, you probably have flip-flops only. However, there's also more complex ways to look at sociobiology and touching back to other things within our unit, like Eurocentrism and Afrocentrism. They're rooted in sociobiology. The idea that where your family originates can create a certain cultural difference between you. And it's the whole idea of why we create stereotypes through ethnocentrism when you are gauging your culture versus another culture. And it also contributes to the idea of feminism, the idea of the patriarchy, the matriarchy, and all of those other things that we necessarily cannot control. So if you woke up and you looked at yourself and said, like I said to myself this morning, I am a white female, I obviously cannot control those parts of me. However, they do shape the world around me. And Marina says that. Last couple of things here are cultural universals. So these are things that are common in every known culture, regardless of what the theories are on that culture. So every culture, regardless of where you are on Earth, has a language. We share traditions. We value certain things. We create structures within our society. And finally, us humans, we can't live without culture. If you guys lived on a deserted island, I always say this, you would impose rules. So if you guys are feeling that way right now, sitting in your lockdown house, there are rules. And if you moved, you would make new rules wherever you are. Take your shoes off at the door, say certain things, communicate in certain ways, clean a certain way. Things are right and things are wrong. There has to be expectations for society for us to live. That's all from this week. We're signing off. Say goodbye.